What we know is that lots of people are very fearful of dementia, but actually getting an early diagnosis helps people to prepare for the journey that they're likely to be taking. Everybody's journey is different. Everybody living with dementia has a unique experience. However, understanding what type of dementia, because there are lots and lots of different types of dementia, understanding what sort of dementia the person's got and how they might be different from somebody else and how to manage that is really important.
Dementia is the umbrella term, and we know there is over 200 types of dementia. And when someone says, oh, I've met a few people with Alzheimer's, no, you've met one person with Alzheimer's. Everybody with a diagnosis of dementia will have symptoms completely different. No two are the same. So it's really important that when you are helping someone or looking after someone living with dementia, that it is just that person that you're with. You might have met 3 or 4 other people, but actually each person is living with dementia differently.
So I think the biggest misconceptions around dementia are the fact that when someone has been diagnosed with dementia, it's like their life has stopped or they're going to lose their loved one. And I think what people need to remember is their loved one is always there. It's just sometimes the shell around them that starts to change through the changes that happen within the brain. And I think it's around ensuring that you continue to have that relationship with your loved one as you have always had, and not take anything that may come from the dementia personally, because I think sometimes some of the experiences that I've observed and witnessed, families can sometimes feel a sense of loss in the sense that they feel they may have lost their loved one. However, they will never lose their loved one. It's just another part of their loved one and another stage of the life of their loved one.
I think a lot of people have misconceptions thinking that dementia is something where someone will automatically revert back to being a child. When my nan was diagnosed with dementia, a lot of people thought straight away she's not going to be able to do anything for herself. I heard one person say, she'll go back to being like a toddler, and that wasn't a case at all. Dementia took a long time to progress, and she still had years where she could have conversations, she could still go out, she could do stuff, and it was about making every aspect of her life meaningful, and that she had a good sense of well-being all the time. It's about keeping their lives with fulfilment and still having joy. It's not something that is the end of the road. It's really not.
One of the misconceptions of people living with a dementia is that when they get the diagnosis, their life has to stop. They're not going to be able to do things they enjoy. They're not going to be capable of doing things they can enjoy. As a community, as a family carer, if they're in a care home, together there's ways that we can work together to make sure that people living with dementia have the best lives possible.
Diagnosis is often quite difficult for families. It's often a confirmation that something is going on in that person's brain, and lots of people's fears come to the forefront because their experience and the media's perception of dementia is often worst case scenario. But not everybody experiences dementia in the same way, and therefore supporting somebody with dementia, the person needs to understand what type of dementia and how is the best way to manage that person, and what's the trajectory likely to look like.
When we first got the diagnosis, I don't know, I was scared that things were going to escalate a lot quicker than what they have done. You read all the things about Alzheimer's and how it affects people, and I probably thought at the time, oh goodness, this is going to be it now. But Mum actually carried on living she has carried on living a reasonably normal life. Yeah, I suppose it was a bit of fear of the unknown, really, of, what was going to happen.
So it's about 2-3 weeks ago, she had a 3-hour assessment with a memory nurse that came here and asked her a series of questions. It was the same sort of questions that your mum was asked, and we kind of knew what we had to go through. And there's some instances that Mum answered some questions really well, and I thought, actually she's all right. And sometimes you hang on to that little bit of hope that she hasn't got dementia, that it's just an infection that needs clearing up, and you kind of hold on to that. And then we got the call on Monday, didn't we? But Mum had been admitted into hospital because she'd had a fall, and the nurse actually confirmed she had vascular dementia. And even though we knew she had dementia, it's still still a shock.
Depending on who's making the diagnosis, it might be a doctor at a clinic or it might be a GP. There may be a range of recommendations. It might be that the doctor says, do you know what, this is very early onset dementia. Go away, make sure that your affairs are in order, look at things like a lasting power of attorney, not only for finance and property, but also for health and welfare, so that you are in the right position to be able to support that person all the way through their journey with dementia. It may well be that they start your relative or your friend or your partner on a medication that helps to manage the symptoms. We all know there's not a cure for dementia, but there are different ways that people can be supported to manage those symptoms. Some of those might be a medication, some of those may be the way that a person lives their life, so their lifestyle choices going forward.
A key piece of advice I'd give to somebody who has an early diagnosis of dementia is to find out what's important to them, find out what their wants and wishes are moving forward, because it may be later in their dementia that they can't communicate that, and it's really important to respect their wishes and wants throughout their whole journey. And also don't forget that they're still a person. Like, their needs are very important and they matter. We don't want to dismiss them as somebody with dementia when it's actually a mom, a dad, a son, a daughter, a sister, a brother. They're just as important as they've ever been. They just have dementia now, so we just need to change their life to make it work for them.
You've just had that news that you've got a diagnosis of dementia. It's really important to remember that you don't have to change everything. You can continue to live a life how you would have normally led it, but maybe just change a little few things about it. You don't have to change everything, and just to be happy and keep going, and if you need help, ask for that help.
The first point of call generally is your GP, and we have to recognise that not all GPs are specialists in supporting people living with dementia, and therefore there may well be a broader network of people that you can go to find out more information. The best place for people to live in the early part of their journey with dementia is at home, and therefore being able to go to dementia cafes, being able to go to local support groups really helps. Being very in tune with your family member or the person that you're looking after living with dementia will help you to find the best service to support that person. Really early in the journey living with dementia, some of the things that we can support people with is more information about dementia, more information about how to support people with dementia, and that might be using one of our guides, or it might be talking to one of our colleagues, or it might be talking to nurses or doctors within the community. Equally, talking to other people who have family members living with dementia is a really good way of sharing experiences and understanding that you're not the only person on that journey.
There is a lot of support out there now for people living with dementia, but also those supporting those with dementia. We've just started a monthly carers CAF, whereby we're supporting people that are caring for people at home with dementia, so that we're building a network of people to be able to enable those that are caring for people, but also those with dementia, to have a network of people to support them.
I'm part of dementia groups, I'm part of caring for people with dementia group, just so that I can see what other people are doing, even people that have got parents or loved ones in care home, how they cope with it. I find them very important because it's nice to know that other people are dealing with the same thing.
I contacted the Alzheimer's Society, and then you're assigned someone. And in the early days, she used to go out and see my mum, and then they contact the Admiral nurse, and then the Admiral nurse comes in for you as the family members, as well as my mum. So yeah, they've been brilliant.
I definitely recommend coming into a care home, to any care home locally to you. You can just come in for a chat to see what avenues you can go to, what's available, what support is out there for you as well. They don't have to come looking for coming into a care home or respite care or permanent care. It's always important, especially when we have families that come to us, that we try and support them in any way we can. Even if it's just for a chat, pop in for a cup of tea, slice of cake and have a chat, because you're not alone. There is other people going through the same situation, and we're all here to support each other as well.
It's really important that you have people around that can support you, because you can't do it alone. You have to have help. When Mum was diagnosed, which was 4 years ago, she didn't want me to tell anybody. And I asked her why, and she said because she didn't want to be treated any differently. So then that put me under a lot of pressure, because I felt loyal to my mum and wouldn't tell anybody. Once I started to tell people, I felt a huge relief, a bit of guilt because mum didn't know that I'd told people, but then I could get help from people that were willing to help. I probably should have used more, and I know other people do, but again, it was my guilt, if you like. So my daughter's been really helpful, my mum's cousin has been extremely helpful, and my mum's friend, and I paid a carer as well. I don't know how I would have coped without those 4 people.
Make sure you've got as much support around you when you first have the diagnosis. I think it's the family that benefit more from the help rather than the actual person with the diagnosis.
Very often when somebody first gets a diagnosis, there's a lot of denial. Could it be something else? Is there something else going on? Have we had everything ruled out before that person gets it? And that's the specialist doctor's role, is to rule out everything else. It's then coming to terms with it. What does that mean? Now, many people will actually also say, I'm so glad I've got a name. I've got a diagnosis. We know what this is. Now we can start to work with it. And now let's see what we need to do to support that person to live well with their dementia and to live their life fully for as long as they possibly can.
So when we did get the actual diagnosis, I think we were all relieved to know that there was actually a reason for why she was behaving the way she was, and her forgetfulness, and she used to repeat herself all the time.
I think the biggest bit of advice in relations to someone that's recently been diagnosed with dementia is actually speaking to the individual that's been diagnosed and finding out a plan of what they want from their care for their future, and enabling them to be in control of how their care pans out for them.
During that first phase of early diagnosis, it's beneficial to start thinking towards the future so that you're prepared, because sometimes the journey can escalate quite quickly and other times it can gently go along. Having conversations can be very difficult. 5 out of 10 people never accept that they have a diagnosis of dementia, and therefore having that conversation can be very tricky. Therefore, you need to have your route planned for the future, but look at what's out there. It's worth going and visiting care homes local to you. It's worth looking into home care agencies to see what options are available to you. It's also worth looking into what funds would be available to you to support the care package that you need. So making those contacts early is really beneficial. And sometimes it's beneficial to actually go and visit a care home and spend time in the care home on a regular basis so that the person becomes more familiar.
With the role of the CRM, sometimes families will come to us saying what's available, what's around financially to help them, and we'll always try and help them as best as we can. So there's all different avenues that you're able to go through, and we will try and find the best avenue for you, whether that's through CHC, whether that's any other means. We will always say this is what's available, this is what you can get, and we will do that for you.
When somebody's first looking into care, I generally would invite them to the home so that we can have a bit more of a chat about what's needed. It's at that point, obviously, what needs does not only the resident have, what does your loved one have? If obviously your loved one is struggling a little bit, it may be something in home that we can help with. However, we work closely with people in the community that we can signpost to. I keep in regular contact with that person to make sure that they've got that help and support, and asking, what support have they been given already. So it's just really talking to them, ascertaining their needs step by step, really, because it's such an overwhelming experience for somebody.
It's just like a roller coaster journey. It really is. And the trouble is, I used to see my mum, well, I still do, every day, and you don't realise how bad they're getting, and your care for them becomes a little bit more, until it just completely takes over your life. It just consumes you, and that's all you do, is you become a carer. and I didn't want to ever be my mum's carer. And I used to be envious of other people that used to come and help because they used to take mum out and have all the nice bits. And I had nice bits as well, but I also had to deal with everything else that you have to deal with.
That preparation early in that diagnosis is invaluable. Seeking support, having those conversations, using the language, using the word dementia, using the words about how the person might need support in the future is incredibly important.